You know, one of the things that really troubles people like me, being that we are designed, we're driven to solve problems, fix things, sometimes you come against the wall of what you can't fix. It's humbling. The humility is good. The frustration of seeing things that could be fixed, but you can't get people to work together, that frustration is almost ever present. And it's very interesting to me how the very, things that so many of us were designed to do, we are constantly in a battle, as much against dealing with the lack of vision and the fear and the confusion among our own people, as well as the pride, avarice, and hubris, as we are against, our enemies and competitors. And that's kind of the paradox of the thing, So what that does is it forces you to really look at stuff, and you have to acknowledge the reality of what you're in. It makes you look at things differently, and it also makes you question things that others might think, to overlook. And so when I see the state of our nation, it is incredibly frustrating to me. I've spent my life trying to help others, trying to communicate things to people in all kinds of ways. And what's interesting to me is, and what's proven to me over and over, is the greatest enemy to the United States is our own people, what we do to ourselves. That's why I say, know thyself, know thy greatest adversary, and thy greatest ally. But mainly here, it's our greatest adversary. Because people, when they do what's right in their own eyes, they create the conditions for fear, confusion, chaos. When they're sleepwalking through life and they're not self-conscious, self-aware of what it is they do. Well, for whatever reason, how they got there, they work against their own best interests. Now, there's a notion that we talk about in Christendom about people being dead in their trespasses. It's pretty accurate. If somebody is not self-conscious, not self-aware of what they do and how it affects others, and they're not even conscious of the words they use, and they don't know the words they use, but yet they spew them out like venom, what does that tell you? If they're spiritually dead in their trespasses, what are they a vessel for? Huh? Because something's going to fill that void. And if it isn't the light of truth, which brings life, what do you think it is? What do you think hides in that darkness inside? Well, that is the question, isn't it? What is it? There's a reason why it is also that Jesus warned, and he always spoke in third person, do not be caught asleep when the Son of Man comes, lest you be caught naked and ashamed. Now, why do you think he warned that? Huh? Because if you're not aware of the time, and you're not aware, and you're sleepwalking through your life, and you're sleepwalking through reality, and you're not conscious of the times that you're in, or how what you do affects others in those times, and you're suddenly caught in that, and there's no more darkness to hide in, well, I'd say that there's going to be a lot to be ashamed about, and a whole hell of a lot of nakedness, because there won't be anywhere to hide. You know, the futility of this world is found in the pride of the heart and mind of all of the humanity. I see it at every level, and I see the effects of it at every level. And I've gone through the stages of grief observing this nation. And it's taught me a lot. But I can tell you that there's a hell of a lot to answer for, because there's a lot of people that are not aware of how their actions, their decisions, their choices affect others. Which is why it is I spend time trying to offer some ways to, maybe understand that. But those days won't always be. There will be a time where there will be no more attempts to explain things to people. There'll only be the consequences. Here's another thing I've found in this world, in my life, is that people will deny the truth, but they'll trample it underfoot and take it and do their will and prosper for a time until their pride sets the stage for them to fall. And there's a whole hell of a lot of that here too. Why do you suppose that is? Huh? What created the conditions that we have now? Huh? Why is it so many people seem to have gone completely dark inside? Why is it so many people have thrown away even the notion of objective truth, yet they claim in their subjective sovereignty to be able to determine what's right and wrong for everybody else? You see, you are living in times that you don't quite get. You're living in times that are pointing you to the reckoning. And you're living in times that if you can't recognize what they are, you're a prisoner, a future casualty, and you're probably a soldier for a lie as a proxy. When you're not self-conscious of stuff, you don't realize, at least in a conscious way. Subconsciously you do, but you don't realize in a conscious way what your effects are. And they're a lot greater and a lot more disastrous than you might want to consider. Nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing. good or bad. You see, you know why your world is the way it is? Your world is the way it is because most people are at war against themselves and one another because they love their darkness more than they love the light of the truth. Now, what does that say about them and about your world? There's not one single problem here that couldn't be solved if the hearts and the minds of the people were good and right and renewed and in truth and in love. And justice and mercy would prevail. It would be the norm. Humility and contriteness of heart would be the norm. You would love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now let me flip that around. There's a dark side to that. Let me show you the dark side of the moon of that statement. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, if you hate yourself, you're going to project that onto others. If you're selfish and prideful, I'm going to explain it. If you're selfish and prideful, and you don't care about anything but yourself, you're actually hating yourself. And because of that pride and refusal to change and a denial of truth, you live in fear and confusion. All of those things which you project onto others. Yeah. You're naked now. There is nowhere to hide for you. Now let me go through it again. If you love your pride more than you love truth, you're filled with darkness. You're deceived, you're in a lie. And if you're in a lie, that means you're slave to fear and your own confusion and unforgiveness and bitterness and hatred. You're a snake. So you do love your neighbors as you love yourself because you're destroying yourself, and so you project all your venomous ways upon others. You're exposed. And here's the rub. I'll let you in on a secret. In everyone's hearts, they know what they do. They know exactly what they do that's wrong, and they'll lie through their teeth and tell you, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was wrong. Right. And so when they have terrible things happen to them, because of their own avarice and hubris, they want to pretend and play the victim instead of taking responsibility for their own actions, which will allow the confusion and mixture that they puke out on everybody else to be cleared up first within their own hearts and minds, freeing them from the lies and the fear and the confusion because of the light of the truth exposing what was done in the darkness. And then they will see others more clearly and treat them with grace. They won't demand grace. They won't demand tolerance. They will freely dispense it because they're humble. Let me tell you what I see about people that are not self-conscious, that are sleepwalkers in the shadowlands of the real. They're in rebellion against truth. They've chosen a lie. They're enslaved to a lie. And in many cases, they prefer the lie more than they prefer their freedom. Yet they'll sure as hell take your freedom away to serve their lie. They're naked too. There's nowhere to hide. So, amplify that and aggregate that to nation states who do the same things. And they think they're being clever and getting away with it, but they're really just manipulative fools, just like individuals that do the same thing. And they're naked as well. They can't hide their shame because they're too busy blaming others and shaming others instead of dealing with their own stuff. Beijing, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? You've been doing that for thousands of years, haven't you? You think that anybody is really, in the end, going to buy in to your ploys and what you do? Even your closest friends don't trust you in Beijing. All those that are like that are also in the same predicament because they all have the same nature. And that nature is the nature of the Nakash. The Nakash being the word that was used in the story of Adam and Eve. It's the serpent, right? It's the word that's translated serpent or glistening one. That was the most cunning, deceptive, right? Clever of all the beasts of the field. And what is the field? It's the entire world. And what are the beasts? Well, the peoples, tribes, tongues, nations, empires, and go on. These things are not mysteries. The reason why you don't know them is you don't ask to know them. You don't seek the truth enough, or you're not willing to listen to others and test what they bring to you as truth, because you didn't come up with it yourself, and that's pride. And that is not limited to the secular side of things. The further you go out on the secular side or the religious side, the more pride you will find. Religious or not, secular or not. The reality is everybody truly knows what they do. Now, they may not be self-conscious at the time they do it, or maybe they are. How would you know? Because everybody's being complicit with their lies, because they will force you to be complicit with their lies. And they're being complicit with their own lies because they're self-deceptive, right? And they're self-deceived. Now, who does that sound like? Let's go on. So what do? They blame others, they accuse and slander others and threaten others. And what is that? Well, they're exposing what they've done, what they're doing, and what they plan to do, thinking that they're hiding their darkness in the face of the light, when the light has already exposed them and exposed everything they've done in the darkness. They're naked. They have nowhere to hide. And the light has blinded them because there's no light in them, because they're filled with darkness. Now, apply that as it is for people, so too it is for nations. You starting to see where I'm coming from? They counterfeit everything. You hear woke culture, right? Those people are not awake. It means the inverse. They're asleep. And some of the people that are pointing out all the crap that they do are just as asleep as they are. And together, they'll both suffer the consequences if they don't wake up, because they have nothing they can hide behind. There are no more fig leaves. Now think about it. When you see people, right, zombie-like, seemingly completely oblivious, what's going on? They're enslaved to what wars against them and dwells in their flesh. I told you the meta war was real. You can deny it all you want. You'll still have to face the consequences. Your denial will not be sufficient to stave off having to see it. It's going to happen one way or another. Either on this side of reality or on the other side in eternity. Seems that there's a diversity of problems that we have set before us. Is it any wonder that we can't actually get on with solutions of fixing things? While everybody is running 1,000 different directions trying to figure stuff out, time itself is even speeding up. So, time is speeding up, culture is speeding up, people's perceptions are slowing down, which makes it even faster to them, right? You never have enough time to get anything done in a day. The trap is closing. The door is closing. The window of opportunity is closing. And what happens once it's closed is the consequences. Now I want you to consider that. Think about what I am telling you. Do not be caught asleep, lest you go naked and ashamed, as it is for people, so too it is for nations.